we have like this. We're going to start a shiur on the Parsha now. We're up to Parshas Toldos. We're going to learn a little bit of, most likely in each shiur, we're going to see some Komarna. That's the purpose, most usually. And we're also going to be seeing some Zohar. Okay, the Komarna, it's very, very interesting stuff. I mean, he was a Talmud. He was a student of the Ner Melech and other really big greats. It's hard to describe how special he was. I'll just tell you, he used to learn at midnight with his father, Chatzot, right? And his father asked him, they had no money. So, they're just about making it. They're eating, they're not eating, they're whatever. And his father, like it says, that when you learn at night, you have a chut shel chesed, you have a strand of kindness spread over you, placed on you during the day. He said, but we're really suffering. We're just getting by. Where do we see that? We're up every night learning. I don't see that. Just something that interests me. I don't understand it. So it says that the fact that we have the ability in our difficult straits to get up the next night and do it again, that's your chut shel chesed. That must be a kindness, because that doesn't make any sense. He said that one time, his uncle was also one of his big teachers, the Zidin Shev. So he said one time his aunt was very worried about his uncle because he hadn't eaten for 2 days. He was just learning and davening. So he went and he said, maybe tell him he needs to eat something. He just didn't eat anything. So he said, Uncle, you need to eat. He said, oh, I didn't remember that I hadn't eaten. He said, believe me, my child, I would have eaten. It's just such learning. Eating, it just didn't come to my mind at all. I mean, the davening, but eating. This is what we're talking about. Very, very, very special people who were connected in the most amazing ways. I can't begin to enumerate even pshat. We're not going to talk so much pshat. Maybe just explaining the simple meaning of the verses. Sometimes he does the best job I've ever seen. Really amazing. And he uses deep, deep sources, and then you're like, oh, that's why it says twice. Same thing for no apparent reason. The Mishnah again and again. What again and again? What are you doing? He says, no, this is the Zahar and this is the pshat. And you're like, whoa, unbelievable. So it's very, very special. Even pshat, and certainly in drash, his concept. I mean, you'll see a little bit as we go through it. You'll see it's very, very special stuff. I still remember talking with someone who was really into Chabad. And he's like, Chabad is beautiful. I'm like, yes, it really is. When we were talking, I was, how Hasidus works, different inyanim. There's different levels. They're channeling, each one's channeling a different level. I said, Chabad is channeling Chachma, and the other Hasidus, the less focused on longer Torahs and more focused on shorter, getting to it and waking up your heart is more channeling Bina, whatever we call it, understanding one thing for the other, whatever this element, what this aspect means. And I said, and Bresav channels Keter, because we have both. He's like, I don't know. He said, Chabad. He's like, what are you putting things in particulars? I'm like, listen, Chabad is really deep and wonderful. He said, but the truth is, it's not the only thing like that. There's another thing called Komarna. He's like, no way, it's not the same. I said, did you ever read it? He said, no. I said, if you read it, I'll take you seriously. But until you've read it, you just don't know. And anyone who in the know knows that this is also just as strong and powerful. It might be a lot less Sfarad. In Chabad, there's hundreds of works. Here you have a lot, maybe 100 works, I don't know. But they're tremendously beautiful, powerful, wonderful things. He really, just one more thing, one of his books, I'll just give you an idea of what he does. We know the sources say that the first set of the 10 Commandments have 620 letters. Does anyone know why? Because of the 613 Commandments and the 7 major rabbinic commandments. Ramchal says this is brought down in earlier places as well. Fine. So the Komarna, he wrote a whole book. He said, that sounds so cool. He said, tell me, what are the mitzvos? How do they relate to each letter? And tell me about them. And he wrote a book called Otzar HaChaim in Heichel HaBracha, explaining every single mitzvah and what's going on. It's Kabbalistic, but when he gets to Chasidus or Pshat, he's incredible. The Kabbalah is also incredible. It's not going to be easy to understand if you don't have a little bit of a background, but the book is it's just, you read it and you're like, wow, how did he bring this down? He was a fantastically special person. There's no words. Again, what he says, it's that's the real One of my favorite, I'll just say one of my favorite quotes before we do today's, there's so many, but one of the favorite quotes I like to bring from him, he brings from the Noach Melech, from Rabbi Melech from the he says, listen, he said, not everything that shines is precious. Sometimes you have someone who says, this shines, this is so beautiful, this is so spiritual, so real. He said, it's not precious. He said, it's like you have diamonds, and then you have like different types of moss that shine, and different other things. You can go in caves, you see shining stuff that's worthless. So it's the same thing. If you're in life, you say, wow, this is shining, this is beautiful. It's like, maybe yes, maybe no. Check it out, find out. You can't be sure what shines until you get a clarity. That's the Komaran. It's a little bit about Komaran. So the Komaran explains. He says, it says, "Ve'elu Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram." Right? He says, it says these are the generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. The Komaran, this is like usual for Hasidus in general, and especially the Komaran in particular. He said those like couple of words teach every Jew how to serve God all the time. Like, how is that? These are the generations of Avram, the son of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. He said, well, you have to know Yitzchak. He represents the aspect of constriction, of Vura. Abraham represents the aspect of kindness. We know Abraham gave anyone came by, he gave them everything. That's who he was. That's the character. That's how he's described in the Chumash. Yitzchak, he was brought as a sacrifice, completely, totally allowed it. The few things we see about him, whatever we see in the Torah, we talk about his prayer. He's praying. If it comes, he's praying. It's not by coincidence. He was always praying. That was his aspect of Avoda. That's who he was. Mr. Avoda, all the time, praying. That was his thing. He's with his wife. The Parshas, they're praying, always praying. So that was his power. That's called the constriction. The person has to usually prayer is not necessarily so much focused on expansiveness, it's just crying out to God and constricting, connecting. It's yira. It's called the yira. They're different, which means awe or fear. A person with praying, he knows he's nothing and God has to help him. That's basically how it works. That's one reason why he is an aspect that's called constriction. So the Komaran says everybody, he said everybody goes through constrictions. We call them dinim. They mean judgments. They are not fun. You're going through stuff that are not fun. It's hard. You're going through hardship. He said, how do you sweeten the hardship? So what you do is, you take the hardship, you take the Yitzchak, and you make it Ben Avraham, the son of Avram, who's kindness. Avram is kindness. You take the hardship, and you sweeten it. You change it around. You say, there's kindness here. There's kindness here. You find that kindness. He said, when you find this kindness, he said, you can flip everything around and make it kindness. That's how, when you just find the kindness, it changes everything around. You have the ability to transform the hardship into something totally different. Everything becomes chasadim. That's how it works. That's why Noach Gamzu said this too is for the best. So this gives a person power to really change things around. He said the truth is, and this is unusual. He says the truth is that the opposite is also true. The opposite is also true. He said when you have everything's going well, he said you're supposed to remember still an aspect of constriction. Remember that. Don't get too heady and inflated. That's why he says Hashem Elokeinu, right? Hashem Elokeinu. You have to have this bechina. It's called Hashem. The bechina is called Elokeinu. Hashem, this aspect of just kindness, just giving, and then there's Elokeinu. There's however much we can take and what we understand and what we don't understand. It has to do with us. For God, it's one. There's no difference. The names have to do with God's actions, how we view Him, how we see what He does. But from Him, it's all one God. There's a bechina, it's called constriction, and we have to be able to know that there is also something called constriction here. I have to learn constriction too. I can't only be expansive, and I can't only be in constriction. So again, like we were saying before, a person wakes up and he says, oh my gosh, I feel like the world ended. I feel like it's the worst thing in the world. So we have to be able to focus on the kindness. First of all, bring Hashem in, but focus on kindness. So you know what? It's true, but it's not so bad, not so impossible. He said, right? Right? These are generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. When you take the kindness and you connect it the way it should be connected to the bechina that's called Avram, when you take the kindness connected to him, it's called Yitzchak. You take the hardship and you say, no, there's kindness here. You connect them right. He said, right, Avram Holidas Yitzchak. Avram, the kindness gives birth to Yitzchak. That's, again, you have this bechina where no matter what, it's going to be an aspect of kindness, and everything's going to be basically sweet. That's what he explains. It says, Shem hu Elokim. That's basically the idea. God is God. Like basically, Shem, on the one hand, giving everything, renewing everything, is all kindness. And on the other hand, we have a bechina that's called Elokim, which is more constriction. We have to learn how to deal with both of these aspects in a proper way. So, give one example. This is a little bit of a strange example, but I give an example anyway. Like, when you find that things seem to be the opposite of what you want them to be, they're against my roots and they're not the way I want them to be. I don't want this. I want something else. I have my own agenda or my own plan, and it's not going according to plan. That's not what I wanted. This I don't want, that I don't want. And very often we get exactly what we think we don't want. And we really have two choices. I can take it in a way that's going to be bad. I can say, well, I'm upset about this. This bothers me. This upsets me. And I'm going to let the person who got on my nerves, I'm going to let them know. So hopefully they won't do this again. That's usually not the best way to take things, because it's not going to help. It's just going to make the din, it's going to make the constriction worse. That's usually how it works. Or you can say, let's try to remember that this is from Hashem. Most often when I say, this is from Hashem, this is what you want, and I accept, everything totally changes and everything clears up. It's a very strange thing. We find this very, very much. Each person who tries this finds everything just totally, it's all okay. Everything's fine. What happened? What happened is that I took this Yitzchak and made him Ben Avram. I took Yitzchak and I said, no, this is Ben Avram. There's positive here. God's doing this. I don't know why. Okay, or even if I do know why, it doesn't help. Believe me, really, it doesn't. It doesn't help at all. When you know why this is happening, it doesn't do you any good. It's still the same pain and annoyance. It upsets you. It's like, so, but then why did I mess that up? Why is that this way? It doesn't help. It doesn't go away. It's hard for them. This is something that's difficult for me. So it's not going to go away just because I'd rather it wouldn't have happened. It's not going to go away because I know why it's happening. If it's true, even if I'm not mistaken, I know why. It doesn't help. It doesn't go away. But I need to know that it's Avraham and Yitzchak is one aspect. They're one thing. There's no such thing as only Avraham. There's no such thing as only Yitzchak. When I take Avraham, when I take kindness, and I bring it into Yitzchak, that creates what it's supposed to create, that makes what it's supposed to make, and that does what it's supposed to do. Everything's good. And the same thing happens away. I also have to learn how to balance out when things are doing great, not to forget, not become complacent, not forget Hashem. There's Hashem. One second, don't forget. Everything's good, and suddenly everything's good, you forgot all of it. Where is Hashem here? You read the deeper Sfarim, you start to, we're trying to make this deep yichud, Ramchal talks about it. We want to make this deep connection, this union with Hashem, and bring him into the world. You're like, wait a minute, where is that? What happened to that awareness? Where did it go? I read this book. What happened? It just doesn't penetrate. It's very, very hard. We go through all these ups and downs. We don't remember what we're doing. We just forget everything. We don't remember anything. To remember, where am I? Who am I? What am I? I have a purpose. I have a purpose here. It's part of our job. Memory. We have to remember who I am. Remember what I am. Okay, so that's one piece of Komaran. I guess we're going to go on to Zohar now. Okay, so the Zohar discusses, the first thing I want to talk about in the Zohar, is the whole situation, the whole strange switch between Yaakov and Eisav, Rivka and Yitzchak. They're doing a whole strange dance here in the Parsha. So what happened is like this. Rivka tells Yaakov. She overhears, right? She overhears Yitzchak saying to Eisav, bring me food and I'll bless you, right? That's Bekitzer. And we know the deeper sources say, the Maram, I think, even the Nigla sources, the real sources, they say you have to be have a good heart. You can't just give a bracha like have a good day. You feel it. You want to connect to it. Especially Yitzchak, he's a channel for something. He has to be filled up, filled and good, and then he can give a bracha. Fine. So he goes to bring him what he's supposed to bring. Rivka tells Yaakov, listen, he's going. So what would we expect her to do? We'd expect her to go in, and say, listen, this is the way it is. This is how things are. You have a son, Tzaddik Yaakov. And working it through with him, kind of decide what to do with these brachas. She doesn't do that. She fools him. She tells Yaakov, listen, you'll go in and you'll fool him and take the brachas. It doesn't, maybe she tried, we don't know, but it seems very strange. It seems very strange that she just makes this whole switch. And Yaakov was like, what does Yaakov say? He doesn't say, well, that's underhanded. I don't want to do that. He says, maybe he'll catch me. It'll be good. No, the switch is a good idea. Catch me. I wouldn't want to catch me. It's also a little bit weird. Why doesn't he work? Why it seems to? It's like this is what had to be done. There's a technical problem. So the Zohar explains it all in the most amazing way. It says, listen. And this is a really fundamental rule of reincarnation anyway, that you come back and deal with the same situations that you dealt with before. When you find yourself in a situation and that things are just horribly confused and tangled, most likely it's because it was the same thing last time and it's got to be reversed now in the same way. So what happens like this. We had a Garden of Eden with two people, Adam and Chava, in this garden. The snake, whatever this means exactly, strolled over to Chava and she said, okay, you need to have from the tree. He tricked her into eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. She ate, gave Adam to eat, and everything got messed up. Actually, the truth is, that was not the real mess up. I always bring this beautiful medrash that if they had only said, we're sorry, everything would have been fine. They just didn't know. But it's so that was then it was all, everything got ruined, the whole world fell. They gave empowered evil, put evil in a person. We all have this physical part of us, very material. The world became much more material, something totally different, totally transformed. Okay, so now what happens? What happens is like this. What happened was that everything fell. Now, Eisav was channeling this same bechina, the same aspect of the snake. So Eisav said, we'll get the brachos from Yitzchak, and then it'll be almost impossible to do anything to fix anything here. So what we did the opposite. What they did was they did the opposite. Rivka was like, I have to fix this trick. So instead of him tricking us, now we have to trick him. So we go in and trick Eisav, we trick the whole bechina. We make everything a switch. So Rivka has to send in, just like they came in a trick one way, it has to come and trick the other way. So Rivka has to send out. We all understand, if Eisav would have been around, if Eisav would have been able to come, now he was even delayed, really. If he'd come in, there would have been a murder. I mean, he even afterwards says, wait till my father dies and I'll just deal with him and then we're Jabrachas. So kill Yaakov. That was his plan. He totally was not, he was not a normal board, he was not a person who had any borders. He was channeling something that was very bad. I mean, people, Reb Nosson talks about what was Eisav. Eisav in general really was this propensity, every person, this tendency to feel like it's all my choice and when I mess up, it's over. Done. I ruined everything in that thing. That's what Eisav was. So Yishmael was the opposite. Yishmael was everything's from Hashem, so it doesn't matter what I do. But Eisav was, he said, how do I tithe salt? How do I do this? How do I do that? He was very full of stringencies. At Bar Mitzvah, he messed up. He said, it's over. I can't fix it. I can't fix it. That's why Eisav really was okay. Eisav's head went into Mars Machpelah with all the great people because he was on the level from the head up. From the head down, no. From the head up, he was okay. From the head down, he wasn't. That's because in his head, he thought he ruined everything and he couldn't fix anything, which was not true. The Rebbe says if he had been fixed, he would have brought Mashiach. Everything would have been totally fixed because he came from a higher aspect of Eisav. That's why he was more challenged. That's a general rule. You're from a higher place, you're more challenged. Okay, so then what happened? So what happened is we need to go back to the same deceit one way came in deceitful, the other way came deceitfully. Right? The minute Eisav would have heard a word, Yitzchak would have said anything to Eisav, anything about giving the brachas, Yaakov would have been like eliminated. That's also why Rivka is afraid he's going to eliminate Yaakov, even though he got the brachas. And by the way, maybe he couldn't. It's not so clear if he could have. He has the brachas. How are you going to kill him? It's so easy. It's not so easy to kill someone like this. You see, Yaakov keeps getting out of it. Keep trying. This one tries. That one tries. Nothing works. He's got the blessings. After all, they're certainly protection. But before he had the blessings, it's just like he figured he wasn't any kind of competition. So it's all a matter. It all has to be done in a way that is not. It's underhanded, just like it happened the first time. So Rivka, who is a reincarnation of Chava, gives Yaakov, who is a reincarnation of Adam. He comes in and he tricks, he fools Yitzchak into giving the brachas. That's what the Zohar explains. That's the first thing. That's why specifically they did all these different inyanim and there's different, all these different things happened just to deal with this sin, the sin of the beginning of Adam and Chava. That's the first piece of Zohar I wanted to do, so I just did it outside quickly. And there's two more things I want to do. And Zohar, the first thing it says towards the end, it says a person should never think, when you learn the stories, here it is. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, we have Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai would talk about, there's a verse in our parsha, right? It says right. Yeah. From the most unusual, like the most simple sounding verse, that has nothing, this one's the wife of this one, this one's the wife of that one. Rabbi Yochanan took from this verse and he learned 300 different things. We see the Ria a little bit does this also. Everything in the Torah, you're not allowed to take anything out of the Torah. Taking anything out of the Torah, it's no good. It's invalid. Why? Because every word of the Torah is telling me things that are not on the surface simple. The Maharal explains, one time I was with my son, not so far from here, actually, and we went to visit a professor. He was having a hard time. Baruch Hashem, everything cleared up. That's what the guy said. He was right. So he went to visit this professor. As we came out, we got in a cab to go home. So we were riding home, and the cabbie had someone in the seat next to him. White hair, I don't know who he was. He's like, oh, I'm a big fan of Bible criticism. I eat you guys for lunch. You guys don't know what to tell me. Like, if you have a question, you can ask me a question. I don't mind. But, I don't know if you're going to know what my reaction is until you ask me, what you do, what you don't. So he's like, yeah. In the Bible, you can't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. Hin and hair, hin and hair. I was like, listen, the Bible's only the written Torah. There's an oral Torah too. He's like, we don't have to believe such a thing. I said, but the Bible doesn't stand alone, and there's no way you could make any sense out of it. I said, first of all, in Re'eh it says that you should slaughter animals, ritually slaughter animals, as I commanded you, and we don't find anywhere in the verse that, you don't find that anywhere. So I guess he's not the most erudite guy. He's like, no, that doesn't exist. I never saw that. I was like, listen, my friend, I know what you saw. But it's not only that. I said, anything else in the Torah that tells you to do, most of the things, a great deal of things, we don't, like, put tzitzis on your garment. It doesn't give you any instructions. What are these things? How do you do it? Make totafot for your between your eyes. Like, what is this? What are these things? If you have an instruction book, if you want to keep the Bible, there's actually a guy who wrote a book. He decided that just for the fun of it, he's going to keep the Bible for a year or something, for a particular amount of time. And he had a hard time. Like, what do I do? How do you do this? There's lots of stuff you just don't know what he's talking about. It's not clear direction because there's no Torah. So he said to me, well, why would that be? I said, that's a great question. I said, that's a good question. I said, that's the Medrash. The Medrash says, why? I said, because when you have a child who is a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, he has to be able to relate to God's book. And when you have a 60 or 70 or 80 or 90-year-old, he also has to relate to God's book, but it's going to be a little bit of a different level. So it has to hold both things. On the one hand, you can teach to a child or a simple person who really doesn't have the understanding to really go deeper, and has to hold also the ability to teach them the most profound things. So he wasn't so excited. He's like, what do you mean? I can present, I do archaeology, and I can present archaeology to the second graders. I was like, wow, that's stunning. That's great. Do you give them doctorates? Like, obviously, there's stuff that you can't teach them. And can you also present brain surgery to second graders? Like, there's a certain point where you can't present. So if you understand, if you don't understand. I mean, my father, actually, when he was becoming a psychologist, he learned statistics. And he had a hard time with it until he remembered the professor saying, and he always says this, statistics is not something you're going to understand without a background in statistics. Just take it on faith, because otherwise you're not going to get it. Even the guy who's got a doctorate in psychology doesn't understand how the math works. He just has to know how it works. He just has to take it on faith. So, I mean, I don't know who said that you have God's book. It has to be like simple, like, 1, 2, 3. Not necessarily, who said that? Where do you get that from? So we were just about coming to Gula, and the Kevra was like, yeah, the guy's right. He has a point. Then we got out of the car. Like, the Torah has tremendous depth in it. There's many, many reasons for it. Like I said, one reason was because you have to be able to relate to it whoever you are. Another reason for it is because it's too much. You can't write everything. How is you going to put everything in here? Every possible case. It has to be here and have an oral Torah to be able to move and work according to where you're holding. Especially the Ritva says that God gave to Moshe 48 different ways of understanding any possibility. Many, many possibilities and options. And in every generation, the sages are going to say this way or that way. Other way, it's all from Sinai, and it's supposed to have rabbinic authority, but it's all there. It was all given. You can't write that. It's like on a million books, it's not enough. And no one will learn it. So you have to be on a level to be able to channel that and get to that. So we have to know, the Zohar says, that when you read in the Torah, when you read a story, when you read something simple, it's not simple. It's not some little story. It's got tremendous, incredible, endless depth. And one of my teachers would say, the more you learn the Ari and the Zohar, explaining what's going on in these stories, what is it telling me, what is it teaching me, the more you see how incredibly deep it is and how endless. He said it really builds a wonder, because you see it's very, very amazing how much this completely holds Kabbalah and how it exactly works in. I mean, I just can't believe when you learn the verses, how that re-explains them. It's just something which is very hard to even, I can't describe how amazing what he says is. We'll see, maybe we'll do a little bit of that also at some point. So that's one thing I want to say. And then there's another pretty well-known thing, but the way the Zohar puts it, it says like this. He says that a son will honor his father. The verse of Malachi says, and a servant his master. So it says, the son honoring his father is Eisav. Nobody honored his father like Eisav. Nobody. So he got reward for that. It's lasting until now. It's unbelievably long, almost endless reward for just honoring his father and doing the little things he did. It's a big, big deal. It's not a little deal. It's a big, big deal. And Eliezer of Avram also. Eliezer was the servant of Avram. He comes in all spiffed up. He's very wealthy. He's got camels laden with stuff, and he doesn't say, "Oh, I'm a friend of Avram." There was no, "Oh, I'm an associate of Avram." Take the honor for himself. He says, "I'm just I'm his housekeeper. I'm nobody. I take care of himself. He made himself into nothing. I'm a servant. I'm nothing." And that fixed him to such an extent, he went into Gan Eden with his body, which was one of the very few people who managed that. Right in. Fixed. He said, he the everlasting reward. He said, that's also why Eisav has such long-lasting reward, the Zohar says. It's unbelievable what he did and how he did. We have to know the greatness of honoring one's father. It's very, very big mitzvah. It's a very, very great thing. When a person gives back to parents, the Medrash says when you don't honor your parents, it says you're not going to honor Hashem either. You can't be in a place where you're really honoring Hashem and you don't honor your parents. Now, of course, sometimes there are dysfunctional people who are, they have a hard time. It's a different story. But the general rule is a person has to find a way to give back what he got. And what he got is not only, the rules of honoring parents are not only someone who raised you, but even the person who brought you in the world. Because just bringing you in the world is the biggest favor someone could do for you in the universe. Physically, there's a dispute in the Talmud about whether physically it's worthwhile. We come out, it's not. For your physical world, the material world, it's not worth it. But for the spiritual, it's worth it and worth it and worth it. It's worth it and worth it and worth it. It's not, every little thing is an eternal thanks to Hashem. It's not a little thing, it's a very big, big deal. Everything drop we do connects us to Hashem forever. So we need to realize that. And that's something honoring parents brings that, we have to appreciate, thank you for bringing me into the world. Not what people say. What? You were thinking about me? What do you care about me? We got married, you were happy together? I came along, why were you? No. And even if they didn't give you anything, not only because of what they gave you, because of bringing you into the world, life, every second of life is so precious we can't begin to understand it. That's why we're very careful. We keep Shabbos, right? We keep Shabbat, but a person, we all had to violate Shabbat to prolong one person's life, we would do it. One Jew's life, we do it. It's forever. It's not simple. It's very tremendous value. Tremendously, tremendously precious. We don't begin to understand what is just taking a breath. We don't know what it is. And that's also another reason we have to really work on being happy with it, appreciating it. We don't understand it. That doesn't mean it's not valuable and very precious. I'm so precious and so valuable. I have to realize that. I have to value that. I have to just not let those negative thoughts take me over, just take me places where I don't want to be there. It's not me. I'm Neshama Tahora. That's who I am. I'm a pure soul. I'm not some kind of, I don't know what. I'm a pure soul who just wants Hashem. That's who I am. That's who all of us are. Every person, no matter who you are, no matter what you did, no matter what you've been through, you have a reason for being here, and your life is precious. Hashem shall be zoche to the aura of Yitzchak ben Avram, sweetening the judgments with kindness, and to realize that everything we go through, it seems like the most deceitful, hard thing. It's from heaven for reasons that happened before. We just don't get them, and that's okay. And if we get them, I'm telling you, it really makes no difference. It doesn't help. You can know everything. I know exactly, write a book. This is why this is happening. It doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make it less painful. It doesn't make it less unpleasant. Now it's pleasant. Now it's okay. Now I'm going to hum a little tune. Live happily ever after. That's not how it works. It doesn't matter what you know. We have to work. We all have to work on connecting, realizing that there's a reason for everything. This is what's supposed to happen. And this is really with kindness. The bitterness that I have is just kindness. That's what Rabbi said. The person starts to turn around. They start to say, wait a minute, let's see. On the one hand, the person's not judged when he's in pain. When you're in pain, they're not going to say, well, we'll ratchet up the volume. But on the other hand, at a certain point, you have to just let go of it and say, I don't want to stay in this state of pain and suffering. I don't want to be there. Because if I stay there, it's why are you focusing on the negative? Why are you're getting kindness? You're getting off scot-free virtually. Why am I so focused on, this isn't fair, that? Okay, it is what it is. Just be relaxed, be free. And really, everything just turns around. Then everything turns around. Everything's good. It's wow, why wasn't I doing that before? Because I had my potential to move up, and I didn't pay attention. Shem shall be zocher. Hold on to Avram, the son of Yitzchak. All the good, only good.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness, that's right. Self-awareness, connection. Start to live real with the spiritual reality is the reality. The rest is not really reality. It's just an illusion. It's a real sort of seeming illusion. Yes, don't bang into walls. I agree. But on the other hand, the Gemara talks about people who they're so careful to watch their eyes. They bang into walls. They start to bleed. So that's not usually the way one should comport oneself. It's not usually, for most people, at least almost everybody, it's not going to be a good idea. But we have to know that really, really, really what we're seeing is an illusion. It's all an illusion. And what's real is only going to be the spiritual mitzvahs and the good things we do. That's the reality. Nothing else. Eliyahu Hanavi comes to the shuk. He asks, so who's the ben al haba? Who's the real person who's most in al haba? And he's told that there's two guys, they're comedians, they make people happy. They go around, they see someone's upset, they have a whole routine, they're thinking about it, making people happy. They have a whole big market, and the people who are the real deal, the generals, the really holding, they're like these guys you can never tell. That's not, you don't tell, look and say, he is. I can tell by, I have the badge, that's not how it works. You have to, where are you really holding inside? That's your choice. Well, it has to do with what's inside you. What's inside me? What am I holding? A person can do a lot of great things. Eisav did a lot of great things, but he just was not inside. He was messed up, and he was not really connected to Hashem at all. Not in a real way. He thought it was all over. He gave up. Despair is the worst thing. A person gives up, and he has nothing. You have to know that's the reality. Again, you look at the Torah, it looks like what you see is what you get. It's not. It's the same thing with our life. The Torah is the story of each person's life. Rav Nosson says everything goes in the Torah. It happens to you every day. Every day, in some way. This trickery and this thing and Eisav, and you're like, what is going on here? I can't even make sense out of it. I can't sort out what's flying. Forget about what my feelings are. I don't even know what's going on. This happens, that happens, the other thing, I don't even know. That's what we all go through. We say, okay, I totally accept that. That's what you want, Hashem. Children with who knows this thing and paying things, this and that, all sorts of stuff. It's like, how do I even process this? And it's like, you just take your time and do your best. And keep smiling. That's really what it comes down to. We have to learn how to keep smiling, how to be very, very strong. Be very strong. It's just hold on to that. Realize that if I just connect now, I'm picking everything up, lighting everything up. Not to pay attention to the things that seem to allure us away from our purpose. We have a purpose here. I have a reason for here. It's not for no reason. I'm here for a reason. God put me here for a reason. It's not for nothing. It's not for naught. I have stuff I need to do. And I don't get it. Again, I don't get it. There's Eisavs, there's this problem and that problem. It's the person's like, what do you mean? How can I not resent this person for this, that, and that thing? If I told you, you'd be like, well, I understand. I get you. You're right. But it doesn't help. Because if I told you, well, why it's happening, you say, well, actually, I can hear that. It sort of sounds like it's canceling. And it's like, yeah, but on the other hand, I have good reason to resent. It's like, well, if you resent the one you're hurting, there's only one person you're really hurting, yourself. And if the resentment manages to hurt somebody else, it's even worse. Because then it says they don't bring in Hashem's mechitza someone who hurts his friend. When we hurt a friend, we are disabling our ability to connect to get into the place with Hashem. They don't let you in. There's like this kind of a barrier, and you can't get in. It's harder to get in. You have to work harder. They say, oh, no, this guy hurts people. It's like, oh, no, it's not good. You don't want to be there. Maybe there are ways around it. There are this. But the Gemara says, it's like not once the Shabbat Rav was sitting around with a whole bunch of people. They were talking, and one guy's like, my Rebbe did this, my Rebbe did that. People, they telling all sorts of stories. So one guy's like, my Rebbe, someone got on his upset and really, really offended him incorrectly, and he got in trouble. He totaled his car. So Shabbat Rav was like, wait, people are talking about praise of their Rebbe. That is not a praise. That's a denigration of your Rebbe, because you hurt someone. That's not help. That's not showing his greatness. It just shows that he has a problem. Thank you for telling us he has a problem, but it might be less harder. Like, why do we need to know about that? It's like slander. It doesn't matter that his upset caused something like that. That's like you're not allowed to hurt someone. So he has a bayah. It's clear that Tosa says. I forgot which Talmudic sage died. And there were several sages, each one saying, maybe it was me because of this. And finally one person said it was because of me. He didn't come to review the shir, and I get upset. And I think that was the reason, he was the one to say, yeah, you're the one. I think that was, I don't remember which one it was. And Tosfos is like, they don't mean a positive, they mean a negative. I'm in trouble. Who's really in trouble? Who messed it up? Who dropped the ball? He's like, I dropped the ball because I was the one. My upset did it. I dropped the ball. It's not a praise. If you hurt someone spiritually because you're upset and you have the best reasons in the world, that's not praise. It's not, oh, you're such a holy, great guy. No, you're in trouble. You hurt mostly yourself. And so if you don't hurt them, so then you're sitting there for what? It's just all I'm doing is hurting myself. I'm not helping anybody. When I help someone, that's the real way of being who we're supposed to be is by helping as much as possible. In a positive way, sometimes you help somebody, do what? So that's not so good. But positive, good things. You have to be able to help someone. I certainly shouldn't be hurting someone any way I can. Be very, very careful not to hurt someone, not to insult them, not to put them down. And this is, of course, the first rule in terms of dealing with your wife, your children. Just think, is this going to be hurtful? Is this going to make her or him feel bad? If the answer is maybe or yes, don't say it. And that's an easy rule to say. It's a hard rule to do. To do our best. Say, you know what? So I'll say it in a better way. But do our best to be very careful. I'm not hurting. I have power over someone else. I have to use it in a way that's going to pick them up and elevate them and make them happy. Not to make them feel pummeled. If I'm pummeling someone, it's not good. To make a person good, not to make a person feel bad. I'm supposed to have a mouth to pick people up. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says in the Yerushalmi, we really should have two mouths, one for holy things and one for unholy. He said, but if we had two mouths, we just use them to like shout people down even more. So what's the point? Then no one would use them, right? So why have one and use it and do your best? It's like you can. That's the bottom line. Hashem shall be zocher to help, not to harm, and to make the rectifications we're supposed to make here without messing up as much as possible, and to just hold on, be clear of who we are, what we are, and that everything is from Hashem.